So there's the one boat and two anchors, but what about one anchor and two boats? Hi, I'm Nico Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley podcast. Today I'm talking about rafting up and sharing some tips to be able to do it successfully. Today's episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by YugoWear. Yugo has the only waterproof floating phone and tablet cases using dry suit zipper technology. Invest in your safety because if you don't protect, you can't connect. Your electronics are fully functional while inside, and there's plenty of room for your keys, cash, and cards. To get the only dry bag on the market with zero device fails, visit yugowear.com. That's UGOWEAR.com. Use coupon code SAVE20BG for 20% off. Yugo, just add water. Sharing an anchorage is very social. If you want to up the social level, you raft together. And rafting is when you have two or more boats all joined together and tied together, and you can easily go from one boat to another. So how can you do this successfully? There are a couple of bonus sort of pre-tips that are really important to remember just off the bat. And the very first one is, not a big surprise for anything boating related, is you need to check the weather. When you're rafting up, you don't want to do it in a time that it's going to be absolute thunderstorms or great big waves for all kinds of reasons. But the first thing is you want to check the weather. The second bonus almost goes without saying tip is that you want to only be sitting to one anchor. Both boats that are tied together should not each have their own anchors out. There should be one anchor out for the two boats. So those are sort of the two pre-tips. One, check the weather, make sure it's calm enough. And two, only sit to one anchor or the anchor from one boat. On to the real tips. The three important tips to know about when you're rafting up. The first tip, use lots of fenders. Look at how the boats will contact and be ready with fenders tied off on vulnerable spots on your boat as well as any boat that's rafted to you, but also make sure you have something else ready to sort of slip in because you won't actually know where they're going to wind up touching until you have finished tying them all off. And during the in-between time, it can be a little bit kind of scary and looking at where the boats are touching. So tip number 1 or 3, if you're keeping track that way, lots of fenders. Tip number 2, spring lines are key. Yes, stern and bow are important to tie together so your boats aren't kind of veering away from each other or towards each other. But your spring line is where you're absolutely going to make sure that your boat isn't sliding forward or back from the boats that are rafted together. And this is really, really important for tip number 3, which is don't forget to look up. Check your spreaders. Boats that are sharing one anchor and rafted together, that doesn't mean that they're going to move in lockstep with the waves. They will roll at different angles and different periods depending on all kinds of things. So you definitely want to set your boats up so that there's absolutely no way the spreaders can touch each other, which means you're probably going to be fore and aft, not directly aligned directly to the beam. Even when we raft our two boats that are the exact same make, even when we raft them together, we look up, make sure that the spreaders aren't going to touch, and we do wind up staggering so that the beam of one is a little bit forward of the beam of the other one. Rafting is a fun way to make sharing an anchorage a little bit easier, particularly if you know you want to be spending a lot of time together. We've been known to raft together because we want to share dinner and share ingredients and just hop back and forth with ease. We've been known to raft when we haven't seen a friend for a long time, and we just want that simplistic way of getting to each other's boats without dealing with a dinghy. It's pretty rare for us to raft at night. We will, while we get together and we might be rafted together during the day, spending the night at anchor together would absolutely 100% require some really good, extra careful attention to that weather that I talked about with kind of pre-tip number 1. But most of the time, I sleep better if I know that it's just me on my boat with my anchor and we're all ready to go. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you. Maybe we'll raft up, maybe we won't. But in any case, we'll be out there enjoying this wonderful life together. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love hearing from our listeners. There's actually a link to our emails in the show notes if you want to send us a note. We love it when you share us with your friends, and we love it when you don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app. Have the most spectacular week.